The notification sound from Vivian's phone cut through the 2 a.m. silence like a knife. I sat in our kitchen, nursing my third cup of coffee, watching my wife of 5 years scramble to grab her device before I could see the screen. Too late. "Arthur's calling again?" I asked, my voice carrying that particular brand of exhaustion that comes from pretending everything's fine when it clearly isn't. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Vivian Hayes-Stone froze, her manicured fingers hovering over the phone. Even at 2 in the morning, she looked put together in a way that made me feel like the hired help in my own home. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled, her silk pajamas wrinkle-free, her makeup still flawless despite claiming she'd been working late at the office. "It's work, Elias. You wouldn't understand." I almost laughed. After 8 years as a freelance programmer, I understood plenty about late-night emergencies. What I didn't understand was why her marketing firm suddenly required her to delete every photo of me from her phone, or why she'd started locking her laptop, or why she'd canceled our anniversary trip to Acadia National Park with less than 12 hours' notice. Right. Work. I took another sip of coffee, savoring the bitter taste. It matched my mood perfectly. Funny how Arthur Vance became such an important client. Wasn't he the ex-boyfriend who used to guide wilderness tours up near Baxter State Park? The color drained from Vivian's face, but she recovered quickly. She'd always been good at damage control. It's what made her such an effective marketing manager. That's ancient history, and you know it. Arthur runs a legitimate outdoor adventure business now. His company needs rebranding, and I'm the best at what I do. I'm sure you are. I stood up, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. Just curious why this particular rebranding project requires weekend trips to his mountain lodge. Vivian's phone buzzed again. This time, I was close enough to see the screen before she could hide it. The message preview was brief, but devastating. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. The cabin's ready." The silence stretched between us like a chasm. 5 years of marriage, reduced to this moment of mutual recognition. She knew that I knew. I knew that she knew I knew. The only question was what we'd do about it. "Elias, I can explain." "Don't." The word came out sharper than I intended. "Just don't." I walked to the window overlooking our small front yard. The streetlights cast long shadows across the pavement, and I could see Mrs. Braddock's curtains twitching in the house across the street. Our neighbor had elevated nosiness to an art form, and I had no doubt she'd noticed Vivian's increasingly frequent absences. This was Millbrook, Maine, population 3,847. The kind of place where everyone knew everyone else's business, where secrets had a half-life of about 36 hours, and where a cheating spouse might as well take out a billboard advertisement. "You want to go to Arthur's cabin?" I turned back to face my wife, surprised by how calm I sounded. "Go ahead. Have your weekend retreat. Rebrand to your heart's content." Vivian blinked, clearly expecting a different reaction. "You're okay with this?" "I'm okay with a lot of things, apparently. I'm okay with you working 16-hour days. I'm okay with you forgetting my birthday. I'm okay with you treating me like I'm some embarrassing relative you have to tolerate at family gatherings." I set my coffee cup down on the counter with deliberate care. "What I'm not okay with is pretending this marriage means something when it obviously doesn't." "That's not fair." "Fair?" I laughed, and it sounded hollow even to my own ears. "You know what's not fair? Spending the last 6 months wondering what I did wrong. Wondering why my wife suddenly found me so repulsive that she couldn't stand to have a single photo of me on her phone. Wondering why the woman I married turned into someone who looks at me like I'm a stain on her designer couch." Vivian's phone buzzed a third time. She glanced at it instinctively, and I saw her expression soften in a way it hadn't for me in months. That look told me everything I needed to know about where her heart had gone. "I'll pack a bag," she said quietly. You do that. I headed toward the basement door. I'll be in my workshop. Try not to wake me when you leave. The basement had become my refuge over the past year. Down here, surrounded by computer equipment, old boxing gear, and the detritus of various abandoned hobbies, I could pretend my life wasn't falling apart. I'd set up a decent home office in one corner, complete with multiple monitors and enough processing power to handle the most demanding coding projects. I fired up my main computer and opened a browser window. Vivian thought I was just some blue-collar programmer who wouldn't understand her sophisticated marketing world. What she didn't realize was that I understood technology in ways that would surprise her, like how to access our shared iCloud account, or how to track the location of any device connected to our family plan. I pulled up the Find My Phone app and watched as Vivian's location updated in real time. She was still in the house, probably packing her weekend bag with the kind of lingerie she used to wear for me. In about an hour, I predicted, her phone would start moving north toward the mountains. The basement felt colder than usual. I grabbed an old MIT sweatshirt from a chair and pulled it on, remembering when Vivian used to brag about her husband, the computer genius. That was back when my background impressed her friends, before she decided that marketing executives were more worthy of her attention than freelance programmers. My phone chimed with a text from Benny Rodriguez, my best friend since high school. You still up? Saw Vivian's car at the office pretty late. Everything okay? I stared at the message for a long moment. Benny owned Rodriguez Auto Repair on the outskirts of town, and his shop was directly across from the corporate park where Vivian worked. If he'd seen her car there late at night, it meant she'd been lying about working late too. The office building was locked down after 8 p.m., requiring keycard access that was logged by security. Everything's fine, I typed back. Just working on a project. It wasn't entirely a lie. I was working on a project. It just wasn't the kind that involved coding. I spent the next hour researching Arthur Vance. Social media made it embarrassingly easy to learn about people, especially people who ran outdoor adventure businesses and needed to maintain a public presence. Arthur was exactly what I'd expected. Ruggedly handsome in that outdoorsy way that appealed to women like Vivian, successful enough to afford a mountain lodge, and just arrogant enough to think he could steal another man's wife without consequences. His Instagram was a masterpiece of masculine posturing. Photos of him rock climbing, leading hiking expeditions, posing with expensive outdoor gear. The kind of man who probably referred to himself as an alpha without irony. I found his business website next. Vance Adventure Tours offered everything from day hikes to week-long wilderness expeditions. The photos showed a rustic lodge nestled in the mountains, about 40 miles north of Millbrook, accessible only by a winding dirt road that would be treacherous in bad weather. Perfect for a romantic weekend getaway. Or a confrontation. Upstairs, I heard Vivian moving around, the soft thud of her suitcase being dragged across the hardwood floor. Part of me wanted to go up there and fight for my marriage. The larger part was just tired of fighting for someone who'd already made her choice. My computer chimed with an email notification. A potential client wanted to discuss a database project, something that would normally excite me. Tonight, it felt like background noise. I checked the Find My Phone app again. Vivian's location was still showing our house, but I knew that would change soon. I could almost picture her upstairs, checking her appearance one final time in the bathroom mirror, making sure she looked perfect for Arthur. The front door closed with a soft click that echoed through the house like a gunshot. I watched the blue dot on my screen begin to move. Vivian's phone traced a predictable path through Millbrook's quiet streets, past the harbor where lobster boats bobbed in the early morning darkness, past the diner where we used to have breakfast on Sunday mornings, past the church where we'd been married 5 years ago. I followed her progress on the screen until she reached Route 95 heading north. Then I closed the laptop and went upstairs to survey the damage. Our bedroom looked like a tornado had hit it. Dresser drawers hung open, the closet was in disarray, and there were wet towel marks on the bathroom floor where she'd rushed through her morning routine. Even in betrayal, Vivian was characteristically inconsiderate. I made myself breakfast, scrambled eggs and toast, nothing fancy, and ate it standing at the kitchen counter while planning my next move. The smart thing would be to call a lawyer, start divorce proceedings, split our assets according to Maine's equitable distribution laws. The practical thing would be to document her infidelity for the proceedings. But I wasn't feeling particularly smart or practical. I was feeling like a man who'd been taken for granted once too often. And I was feeling like it was time to remind my wife and her boyfriend that actions have consequences. My phone rang. Benny. Morning, sunshine. You sound like hell. Feel like it too. I scraped the last of my eggs onto the toast. Vivian went to see Arthur this weekend, for business, she says. Arthur Vance? That pretentious ass with the adventure tours? Benny's voice carried the kind of disgust usually reserved for people who put pineapple on pizza. Brother, I hate to be the one to tell you this, but that ain't business. I know. You know? And you're just okay with it? I'm okay with a lot of things. What I'm not okay with is being treated like an idiot. I finished my breakfast and rinsed the plate in the sink. You busy today? It's Saturday. Shop's closed. Why? Feel like helping an old friend with a project? There was a pause. Benny had known me since we were 17. He could read between the lines. What kind of project? The kind where a cheating wife and her boyfriend learn that some people bite back. I'm listening. I spent the next 20 minutes outlining my plan. It wasn't elaborate, the best revenge rarely is, but it would be effective. By the time I hung up, Benny was laughing so hard I could hear him wheezing. You're evil, man. I love it. Give me an hour to round up supplies. My next call was to Maya Chen, a travel photographer I'd met through work. She'd hired me to build a client management system for her business, and we'd stayed in touch. Maya was smart, funny, and had the kind of Instagram presence that made people pay attention. Elias, what's up? Please tell me you're calling with another coding project. I need to upgrade my backup system. Actually, I need a different kind of favor. How would you feel about helping me stage the world's most devastating photo shoot? I explained the situation, leaving out the more personal details. Maya was a professional, but she was also a woman who'd been cheated on herself. She understood the assignment immediately. When and where? This afternoon. I'm thinking somewhere tropical, or at least somewhere that looks tropical. I know just the place. There's a resort about 2 hours south that owes me a favor. Private beach, perfect lighting, and they're always looking for promotional photos. Her voice carried a wicked edge. How devastating are we talking? Hiroshima devastating. Oh, this is going to be fun. By noon, I was on the road heading south while Vivian was presumably settling into Arthur's mountain love nest. I'd changed into my best casual clothes, dark jeans, a fitted blue shirt that brought out my eyes, and the leather jacket Vivian had bought me for Christmas 2 years ago, back when she still cared about how I looked. The resort was exactly what Maya had promised, upscale, picturesque, and completely unlike anything in Maine. Palm trees, white sand beaches, crystal clear water that probably cost a fortune to maintain. The kind of place that screamed expensive vacation in every photo. Maya met me at the entrance, camera equipment slung over her shoulder, looking every inch the successful creative professional. She was wearing a flowing sundress that photographed beautifully, her dark hair catching the afternoon light. Ready to break the internet? She asked. Ready to break my wife's heart. The photo shoot was a masterclass in visual storytelling. Maya positioned us on the beach, in the resort's infinity pool, at the beachside bar with tropical drinks. Every shot was designed to tell a story. Successful man enjoying life, beautiful woman by his side, not a care in the world. Lean in closer, Maya directed. Look at me like I just told you the funniest joke you've ever heard. It wasn't hard to smile. For the first time in months, I was enjoying myself. Maya was easy to talk to, quick to laugh, and completely unlike my wife in every way that mattered. Where Vivian was cold and calculating, Maya was warm and spontaneous. Where Vivian criticized, Maya encouraged. "These are incredible," she said, reviewing the shots on her camera's LCD screen. "You photograph really well. Your wife is an idiot." "My soon-to-be ex-wife," I corrected. "Even better." We spent 3 hours creating what would look like a romantic weekend getaway. Maya coached me through poses I never would have attempted on my own, captured candid moments that looked perfectly spontaneous, and created a visual narrative that would be impossible to misinterpret. The final shot was taken just as the sun was setting, casting golden light across the water. Maya and I were sitting close together on the beach, her hand on my arm, both of us laughing at something off camera. It was the kind of photo that belonged in a travel magazine or a dating app success story. "Perfect," Maya said, showing me the image. "This one's going to hurt." I drove home as darkness fell across Maine, my phone full of photos that would change everything. The house felt different when I walked in, emptier, but also somehow lighter. I'd spent so many months walking on eggshells trying to avoid setting off Vivian's increasingly frequent mood swings that I'd forgotten what it felt like to relax in my own home. I checked the Find My Phone app. Vivian's location showed Arthur's Lodge, where it had remained all day. No doubt they were having a wonderful time, secure in the knowledge that her stupid husband was home alone, probably watching Netflix and feeling sorry for himself. I opened Instagram and selected the best photo from the day, Maya and me on the beach, looking like we were having the time of our lives. I crafted the caption carefully. "Sometimes the trip you cancel is the one you needed most. Amazing how much better life gets when you stop settling. New beginnings. Living my best life. Blessed." My finger hovered over the share button for a moment. Once I posted this, there would be no going back. Vivian would see it, everyone would see it, and the narrative she'd been controlling would shift completely. I hit share. The response was immediate. Likes and comments started pouring in within minutes. Friends I hadn't heard from in months suddenly wanted to know who the beautiful woman was. Co-workers praised me for moving on and finding happiness. Even my mother, who rarely used social media, left a comment. "So proud of you, honey. You deserve to smile like this." My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Then another. Then my phone started ringing. Vivian had seen the photo. "What the hell is this?" Vivian's voice crackled through the phone, high-pitched and furious in a way I hadn't heard since she'd discovered I'd accidentally deleted her favorite TV show from the DVR. "This is me having a good day," I said, settling into my basement office chair. "You remember those, right? Good days?" "Don't you dare get cute with me, Elias. Who is she?" "Maya? She's a photographer, really talented. We had a great time today." The silence on the other end was deafening. I could practically hear Vivian's brain working, trying to figure out how her boring, predictable husband had suddenly become the kind of man who took beautiful women to expensive resorts. "You're having an affair," she said finally. I laughed. Actually laughed. "That's rich, coming from you. Where are you calling from, by the way? Arthur's cabin has great cell service." "That's different. Arthur and I are working on his rebranding project." "Right. How's that going? Did you rebrand his bedroom yet?" "You snake." "Now we're getting somewhere. The real Vivian comes out." I pulled up the Instagram post on my computer screen. The likes were climbing steadily, and the comments were getting more interesting by the minute. "You know what's funny? I've gotten more compliments in the last 2 hours than I've gotten from you in the last 2 years. Take it down." "Why?" "Because it's humiliating. People will think what? That I'm capable of attracting an intelligent, beautiful woman? That I'm not just sitting at home waiting for my wife to remember I exist?" I scrolled through the comments, reading them aloud. Here's one from Linda Martinez. Isn't she your coworker? You look so happy, good for you. And here's one from Tom Bradley from the Yacht Club. About time, buddy, life's too short. Oh, and here's my personal favorite, from Mrs. Braddock. Some women don't know what they have until it's gone. Elias, please. Please what? Please keep pretending our marriage isn't over. Please keep acting like I don't know you've been lying to me for months. Please keep being the understanding husband while you screw your ex-boyfriend in his mountain cabin. The line went quiet again. When Vivian spoke, her voice was different, smaller. How long have you known? Does it matter? The point is, I know. The question is what we do about it. We could try counseling. We could work through this. Could we? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you already made your choice. You chose Arthur and his rugged outdoor lifestyle and his mountain retreat. You chose excitement over stability, passion over partnership, whatever the hell he represents over whatever the hell I represent. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. You wanted out of this marriage, Vivian. You just didn't want to be the bad guy. You wanted me to be the one to call it quits, so you could tell everyone that I gave up, that I wasn't willing to fight for us. I stood up and walked to the basement window, looking out at the dark street. Well, congratulations. You got your wish. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm done fighting for someone who doesn't want to be fought for. It means I'm done being treated like an embarrassment. It means I'm done pretending that what we have is a marriage instead of a business arrangement where I pay the bills and you show up for the occasional public appearance. I could hear voices in the background on her end of the call. Arthur, probably, wondering who she was talking to, maybe getting annoyed that her husband was interrupting their romantic weekend. I have to go, Vivian said. I'm sure you do. Give Arthur my regards. I hung up and immediately blocked her number. Whatever she had to say to me from now on, she could say through lawyers. My phone buzzed with a text from Benny. Dude, saw your Instagram. You work fast. She's gorgeous. Long story. You still up for tomorrow? Wouldn't miss it. What time? Early. I want to get there before they're fully awake. Evil. I love it. See you at 7. I spent the rest of the evening researching Arthur's property online. The lodge was isolated, accessible only by a single dirt road that wound through dense forest. No neighbors for miles, which probably made it feel romantic and private. It would also make what I had planned much more effective. I went to bed that night in the guest room, not wanting to sleep in the bed I'd shared with Vivian. The house felt different without her in it, not empty, but peaceful. I'd forgotten what it was like to relax completely in my own space. My phone buzzed with notifications throughout the night as the Instagram post continued to gain traction. Friends, acquaintances, even people I barely knew were liking and commenting, creating a social media narrative that would be impossible for Vivian to counter. By morning, the post had over 200 likes and 50 comments. The story was already being written by our social circle. Elias Stone had moved on, was dating someone new, was clearly happier without his wife. It would be the talk of Millbrook for weeks, which was exactly what I'd wanted. Benny arrived at 7 a.m. sharp, driving his pickup truck and grinning like a kid on Christmas morning. He'd brought everything I'd requested: biodegradable paint, fish scraps from his brother-in-law's lobster boat, and a few other supplies that would make Arthur's weekend memorable. You sure about this? He asked as we loaded everything into my car. Once we do this, there's no taking it back. I'm sure. They want to play games? Let's play games. The drive to Arthur's lodge took 45 minutes, winding through increasingly dense forest as we climbed into the mountains. The dirt road was exactly as rough as I'd expected, full of potholes and washouts that would be hell on a low-clearance vehicle. Arthur's Jeep was parked outside the lodge, a pristine black Wrangler that probably cost more than I made in 3 months. It was exactly the kind of vehicle a guy like Arthur would drive: rugged, expensive, designed to project an image of outdoor competence. The lodge itself was rustic, but clearly expensive, the kind of place that cost a fortune to build and maintain. Large windows, wraparound deck, stone chimney already sending smoke into the morning air. Very romantic, very private, very isolated. "Nice place," Benny whispered. "Shame about what's going to happen to that Jeep." We worked quickly and quietly. The fish scraps went into the air vents, ensuring that the smell would be impossible to eliminate without completely replacing the HVAC system. The biodegradable paint, bright pink, because I have a sense of humor, went across the hood in large, unmistakable letters, "Home Wrecker." The sugar in the gas tank was probably overkill, but I was feeling thorough. The final touch was my wedding ring, placed carefully on the dashboard, along with a note written in block letters. "Hope she was worth it. E." We were back on the main road within 20 minutes, leaving no trace except for the artistic improvements to Arthur's vehicle. "Think they'll call the cops?" Benny asked as we drove back toward town. "And tell them what? That someone vandalized the car of a guy who's sleeping with a married woman? In a town where everyone knows everyone's business?" I shook my head. Arthur's too smart for that. He knows how this would play out in public. What about Vivian? Vivian's about to learn what it feels like to be humiliated in front of people she cares about, just like she's been doing to me for months. We stopped at the diner for breakfast, where the waitress, Sarah something, I'd known her since high school, immediately wanted to know about the woman in my Instagram photos. "She's beautiful, Elias. Good for you." "Thanks, Sarah. About time you found someone who appreciates you. That wife of yours." She shook her head and walked away, but the message was clear. The whole town was already talking. By the time Vivian came home, everyone would know that her husband had moved on, was dating someone new, was clearly better off without her. The narrative was shifting, exactly as I'd planned. My phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Then another call. Another voicemail. By the time I got home, I had 6 missed calls and 3 voicemails, all from numbers I didn't recognize. I listened to the first one. "Elias, it's me. I'm calling from Arthur's phone because you blocked my number. We need to talk. What you did to his car, that's vandalism. That's illegal. Call me back." I deleted the message without listening to the others. Let them sweat. Monday morning brought fresh complications. I was working in my basement office trying to focus on a database project for a client in Portland when my doorbell rang. Through the security camera I'd installed last year, I could see a police cruiser in my driveway. Officer Janet Mills stood on my front porch, looking uncomfortable. I'd known Janet since high school. She'd dated Benny for about 6 months junior year, and she had the expression of someone who really didn't want to be here. "Morning, Elias. Sorry to bother you." "No bother. What can I do for you, Janet?" "Got a complaint about some vandalism up at Arthur Vance's place. Pink paint on his vehicle, some unpleasant smells. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you?" I leaned against my doorframe, projecting calm innocence. "Arthur Vance? Isn't he the guy who runs those wilderness tours? I think I met him once or twice, years ago." Janet nodded slowly. She knew exactly who Arthur was, and she probably had a good idea why someone might want to vandalize his property. "Thing is, Elias, he seems to think you might be involved. Says you have a grudge against him." "A grudge? Why would I have a grudge against someone I barely know?" We both knew she couldn't answer that question without getting into details that would make this whole situation very awkward for everyone involved. In a town like Millbrook, everyone knew everyone's business, but there were still rules about what you could say officially. "Look," Janet said finally, "between you and me, I think Arthur Vance is a pretentious ass who probably had this coming. But I still have to ask, where were you yesterday morning between 6 and 9 a.m.? "Home. Sleeping in. It was Sunday morning." I pulled out my phone and showed her the Instagram post. "Actually, I was pretty tired. Had a long day Saturday. Great day, but long." Janet looked at the photo, and I saw her expression change slightly. Like everyone else in town, she was putting the pieces together. Nice picture. You look happy. I am happy. Happier than I've been in a long time. Good for you. She closed her notebook without writing anything down. Well, I don't see any evidence that you were involved in whatever happened to Mr. Vance's vehicle. Probably just kids. You know how it is. Isolated property, expensive car, makes a tempting target. Probably, I agreed. After Janet left, I went back to work, but I couldn't concentrate. The confrontation was coming. I could feel it building like a storm on the horizon. Vivian would be home soon, and she'd be furious. Arthur would be furious. They'd want answers, apologies, consequences. They were going to be disappointed. Around noon, my phone rang. Maya. Saw the police car at your place on the news. Everything okay? Wait, what? The news? Channel 8. They're doing a story about vandalism in the mountains. Showed your house as part of the coverage. She paused. Elias, what did you do? I explained about Arthur's car, and Maya started laughing so hard she snorted. Oh my God, you're terrible. I love it. Pink paint? Seemed appropriate. And fish guts? You're like a criminal mastermind, but for petty revenge. I prefer creative problem solver. Well, your creative problem solving is about to get more complicated. I just saw your wife's car heading toward your street. She looked intense. I thanked Maya and hung up, then positioned myself in the living room where I'd have a clear view of the driveway. Sure enough, Vivian's silver BMW pulled in 5 minutes later, followed immediately by Arthur's pickup truck. Apparently, his Jeep was out of commission. They sat in their vehicles for a moment, probably strategizing. Then Vivian got out, smoothed her hair, and marched toward the front door like a woman on a mission. Arthur followed, his face red with anger. I opened the door before they could knock. Vivian, Arthur, what a lovely surprise. Cut the act, Elias, Vivian snapped. We know what you did. What I did? I'm not sure what you mean. Arthur stepped forward, trying to intimidate me with his size. He was taller than me, broader, the kind of guy who probably thought physical presence was a substitute for intelligence. You vandalized my property, you little weasel. That's a felony in Maine. Is it? Huh. Well, fortunately, I was home sleeping yesterday morning. Just ask Officer Mills. She already checked. You think you're clever? Arthur's face was getting redder. You think this is some kind of game? I think you're standing on my property, making accusations you can't prove, about crimes you can't demonstrate I committed. I smiled. But please continue. You're making this very entertaining. Vivian looked between us, clearly realizing that this confrontation wasn't going the way she'd planned. Elias, we need to talk, privately. I don't think so. Anything you have to say to me, you can say in front of your boyfriend. After all, you've been sharing everything else with him. That's not fair. Fair? I laughed. You want to talk about fair? Let's talk about fair. Is it fair that I spent 6 months wondering what I'd done wrong while you were planning your exit strategy? Is it fair that you made me feel like I was losing my mind while you were sneaking around behind my back? Is it fair that you turned our marriage into a lie while I was still trying to make it work? You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You got bored. You wanted excitement. You wanted someone who could give you adventures and outdoor experiences and whatever else Arthur represents that I don't. I shrugged. That's fine. That's your choice. But don't expect me to make it easy for you. Arthur stepped closer, his hands clenched into fists. You need to back off, buddy. This is between Vivian and me now. Is it? Because last I checked, Vivian is still married to me. She's still living in my house, driving a car that's half mine, using credit cards with my name on them. I looked directly at him. But you're right about one thing. This is between us now. You decided to insert yourself into my marriage. You decided to help my wife lie to me. You decided to disrespect my home and my relationship. So yeah, it's between us. You want to do something about it? Arthur's voice was low, threatening. I already did something about it. Pink really isn't your color, by the way. He lunged forward, but Vivian caught his arm. Arthur, don't. He's trying to provoke you. Smart woman, I said. Because if you lay a hand on me on my own property, in front of witnesses, after making verbal threats, you'll be the one explaining things to the police. Arthur realized he'd been outmaneuvered. His face went from red to purple, but he stepped back. This isn't over, he said. You're absolutely right. It's not over. It's just getting started. They left without another word, Arthur's truck spitting gravel as he backed out of my driveway. I watched them go, feeling a satisfaction I hadn't experienced in months. My phone buzzed with a text from Benny. Heard there was some excitement at your place. You okay? Better than okay. Phase 2 is about to begin. Phase 2? Tonight. Meet me at the Lobster Trap at 8. Bring your camera. The Lobster Trap was Millbrook's primary gathering place, the kind of bar where everyone went to see and be seen, to catch up on gossip, to make sure they were part of whatever story was being told that week. It was also where Vivian and Arthur would go to try to control the narrative about what had happened between us, which made it the perfect place for me to control the narrative instead. I spent the afternoon preparing, choosing my clothes carefully, crafting my story, making sure I had all the details right. By the time I walked into the Lobster Trap at 8 p.m., I was ready for war. The bar was crowded, filled with the usual Monday night crowd of locals unwinding after work. Conversations stopped when I walked in, and I could feel eyes following me as I made my way to the bar. Elias! Tommy Morrison, the bartender, greeted me with a grin. Heard you've been making some waves lately. Good for you, man. Just living my best life, Tommy. Whiskey neat. I'd been at the bar for about 10 minutes when Vivian and Arthur walked in. The room went quiet, not silent, but that subtle hush that falls over a crowd when something interesting is about to happen. They made their way to a table in the corner, trying to look casual, but I could see Vivian scanning the room, gauging reactions, trying to read the social temperature. What she saw couldn't have been encouraging. People were looking, whispering, pointing, not at her, but at me. The sympathy was flowing in my direction, which was exactly what I'd hoped for. I waited until they were settled, until they'd ordered drinks, until they thought they had control of the situation. Then I walked over to their table. Vivian, Arthur, fancy meeting you here. The entire bar was watching now, conversations fading as people strained to hear what was happening. Elias, please don't make a scene, Vivian said quietly. A scene? I'm just saying hello to my wife and her business associate. I smiled broadly. How's the rebranding project going, by the way? Making good progress? Arthur started to stand, but I held up a hand. Easy there, big guy. I'm just being friendly. After all, we're all adults here. We can have a civilized conversation. What do you want? Vivian asked. Want? I don't want anything. I just thought I should thank you. Thank me? For setting me free. For showing me what I was missing. For helping me realize that I deserve better than someone who treats me like an inconvenience. I gestured around the bar. Look around, Vivian. Look at how people are looking at us. They're not feeling sorry for you. They're feeling sorry for me, the poor husband whose wife cheated on him with her ex-boyfriend. Vivian's face went white. You're not what? You're not having an affair? You're not spending weekends at his cabin? You're not planning to leave me for him? I laughed. Come on, Vivian. Everyone here knows exactly what's going on. The only question is whether you're going to own it or keep lying about it. The bar was silent now. Even the music seemed quieter. Arthur finally found his voice. You need to walk away, man. Now. Or what? You'll vandalize my property? Oh, wait, that's my move. I leaned closer. Here's the thing, Arthur. You picked the wrong guy to mess with. You thought I was some pushover who'd just roll over and let you steal his wife. But I'm not. I'm the guy who fights back. I'm the guy who makes sure everyone knows exactly what kind of people you are. I straightened up, speaking loud enough for the entire bar to hear. So here's what's going to happen. You two are going to finish your drinks, you're going to leave, and you're going to remember that this is my town, these are my friends, and your little love story isn't welcome here. I walked back to the bar, leaving them sitting at their table in stunned silence. The entire room erupted in whispers and murmurs, and I could see people pulling out their phones, probably texting friends who weren't there, spreading the story across town in real time. Vivian and Arthur left 5 minutes later, heads down, avoiding eye contact with everyone. I stayed for another hour, accepting congratulations and support from people who'd known me for years, people who'd watched my marriage deteriorate from the outside and were glad to see me finally standing up for myself. By the time I went home, the story was already legend. By morning, it would be all over town. And that was just the beginning. Tuesday morning brought an unexpected visitor. I was having coffee on my front porch, enjoying the crisp October air and the fact that I could relax in my own home without worrying about Vivian's mood, when a familiar car pulled into my driveway. Linda Martinez climbed out, looking around nervously before walking up to my porch. Linda worked with Vivian at the marketing firm, and I'd always liked her. She was smart, funny, and one of the few people in Vivian's professional circle who'd ever treated me like I mattered. Elias, I hope you don't mind me stopping by. I know this is awkward. Not awkward at all. Coffee? She accepted gratefully, settling into the porch swing beside my chair. I probably shouldn't be here, she said, but I thought you should know what's happening at the office. I'm listening. Vivian didn't come in yesterday, called in sick. But Randall, our boss, he saw your Instagram post over the weekend, and then he heard about what happened at the lobster trap. Linda took a sip of coffee. He's not happy. About what? About having an employee whose personal drama is becoming public gossip. About the fact that everyone in town is talking about Vivian's affair. About the potential impact on the firm's reputation. I felt a cold satisfaction settling in my chest. Go on. He asked me to pull Vivian's timesheets for the last 3 months. All those late nights and client meetings. They don't match up with her keycard access to the building. She hasn't been working late. She's been lying. That's unfortunate. Linda smiled grimly. It gets worse. Remember that big outdoor gear account she said she landed? The one that was supposedly going to be such a coup for the agency? Let me guess. Arthur Vance's company? Bingo. Except there is no account. Arthur's business is tiny. 3 employees, maybe 50,000 in annual revenue. Not exactly the major client she claimed to have landed. So she's been lying about that too. Completely. And Randall is furious. He's been bragging to other agencies about this big new account, and now he looks like an idiot. I leaned back in my chair, processing this information. Vivian's carefully constructed professional image was crumbling along with everything else. There's more, Linda continued. Arthur called the office yesterday, screaming about harassment and vandalism, made some threats about suing the company if they didn't control their employee's husband. Randall was not receptive. I imagine not. He told Arthur that what his employees' spouses do on their own time is none of his business, and if Arthur had a problem with you, he should take it up with the police. Then he hung up on him. I laughed. I like your boss. He's a good guy, but he's also a businessman, and this situation is becoming a liability. Linda stood up. I thought you should know that Vivian's job is probably in jeopardy. And I thought you should know that not everyone at the office thinks you're the villain in this story. After Linda left, I spent the morning working on client projects, trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy while my life imploded and rebuilt itself around me. But concentration was difficult. I kept thinking about the conversation, about how completely Vivian's world was falling apart. She'd lost her marriage. Her affair was public knowledge. Her job was in danger. Her boyfriend was revealed as a small-time operator who'd exaggerated his success. And everyone in town was talking about it. It should have felt like enough. It should have felt like justice. But it didn't feel like enough. Around noon, my phone rang. Maya. Are you busy? Because I just had the most interesting conversation with someone from Channel 8. The news station? They want to do a follow-up story on the vandalism case. Apparently, it's become a bigger story than they expected. Small-town drama, social media revenge, that kind of thing. They want to interview you. About what? About your side of the story, about what it's like to have your marriage end so publicly, about how social media has changed the way we handle relationship drama. Maya paused. They saw our photos, Elias. They want to interview both of us. The idea was tempting. A chance to tell my story publicly, to control the narrative completely, to make sure everyone understood exactly what had happened and why. But it also felt like overkill, like kicking someone when they were already down. I don't think so, I said finally. This isn't about getting famous, it's about getting even. Fair enough, but the offer's there if you change your mind. That afternoon, Benny called with news that made me reconsider my position on publicity. You're not going to believe this, he said. Arthur Vance just tried to have his Jeep towed to my shop. Tried to. I told him we were booked solid for the next month, suggested he try the dealership in Bangor. Benny was laughing. But here's the thing, I talked to Jimmy at the dealership. Arthur's been calling around all morning trying to find someone to work on his car. Nobody wants to touch it. Why not? Because everyone knows what happened. Everyone knows why his car got vandalized. And nobody wants to be seen helping the guy who's screwing around with another man's wife. I felt that cold satisfaction again. In a small town, reputation mattered. Social ostracism was a real consequence. It gets better, Benny continued. My cousin works at the bank. Arthur tried to get a loan yesterday to buy a new vehicle. They turned him down. On what grounds? Bad risk. Apparently his business isn't as successful as he's been claiming, and now that his personal drama is public, the bank doesn't want to be associated with him. Interesting. Very interesting. Oh, and one more thing. Mrs. Braddock saw Vivian moving boxes out of your house this morning. Looks like she's finally making it official. After Benny hung up, I sat in my basement office, staring at my computer screen without really seeing it. Everything was working exactly as I'd planned. Vivian and Arthur were facing consequences for their actions. The town had chosen sides, and it wasn't their side. But something still felt unfinished. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Meet me at the diner at 6. Come alone. V. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to let her stew in the mess she'd created. But a larger part was curious. What could she possibly have to say now? I arrived at the diner 5 minutes early and chose a booth in the back, away from the main flow of customers but still visible to anyone who might be watching. In a town like Millbrook, even a private conversation was public if it happened in the right place. Vivian arrived exactly on time, looking haggard in a way I'd never seen before. Her usually perfect hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, her makeup was minimal, and she was wearing jeans and a sweater instead of her usual professional attire. She slid into the booth across from me without making eye contact. Thank you for coming. You said you needed to talk. Talk. She was quiet for a long moment, staring at her hands folded on the table. I lost my job today. I heard that might happen. Randall said I'd brought too much negative attention to the firm. Said my personal problems were affecting the company's reputation. She looked up at me finally. He's right. Yes, he is. Arthur's business is falling apart. Nobody wants to work with him. His insurance company is investigating the vandalism claim, and they're asking questions he can't answer. That's unfortunate. Elias, please. I know you hate me right now, and I know I deserve it. but this has gone too far. You've made your point." I leaned back in the booth, studying her face. She looked genuinely distressed, genuinely sorry. For a moment, I almost felt bad for her. Almost. Have I made my point? Because I'm not sure you understand what my point actually is. You wanted to hurt me. You wanted to embarrass me. You wanted to show me what it feels like to have my life fall apart. Her voice was getting shakier. Mission accomplished. No, Vivian. That wasn't my point at all. She looked confused. My point was to show you what consequences look like. My point was to demonstrate that actions have repercussions. My point was to make sure you understood that you can't just treat people however you want without expecting them to fight back. I never meant... You never meant what? To hurt me? To humiliate me? To make me feel worthless? I leaned forward. But you did all of those things. For months. And you did them while pretending to love me, while sharing my bed, while spending my money and living in my house. I did love you. No, you didn't. You loved what I represented. Security, stability, a safe backup plan while you figured out what you really wanted. I shook my head. But you never loved me. If you had, you would have talked to me when you started feeling disconnected. You would have suggested counseling when you realized we were having problems. You would have been honest about your feelings instead of sneaking around behind my back. Tears were running down her cheeks now. What do you want from me? I want you to understand that you made choices. You chose to lie. You chose to cheat. You chose to humiliate me in front of our friends and family. And now you're facing the consequences of those choices. But Arthur didn't deserve. Arthur made his choices too. He chose to pursue a married woman. He chose to help you lie to me. He chose to disrespect my marriage and my home. I shrugged. Now he gets to live with the consequences. Vivian wiped her eyes with a napkin. So what happens now? Now you sign the divorce papers my lawyer will send you. You take your share of our assets and you start over somewhere else, preferably somewhere far from here. And if I don't? I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Then I call Channel 8 and give them the interview they've been asking for. I tell them the whole story, the lies, the cheating, the fake business accounts, everything. I make this a regional news story instead of just local gossip. Her face went white. You wouldn't. Try me. We sat in silence for several minutes. Around us, the diner buzzed with normal small-town life. People having dinner, catching up on gossip, living their uncomplicated lives. I really did love you once, Vivian said quietly. Maybe you did. But love isn't just a feeling, Vivian. It's a choice. It's choosing to be honest, even when honesty is hard. It's choosing to be faithful, even when faithfulness is boring. It's choosing to work on problems instead of running away from them. I stood up, dropping a $10 bill on the table for my coffee. You chose differently. Now you get to live with that choice. I walked out of the diner without looking back, leaving Vivian sitting alone in the booth, crying into her napkin. Outside, the October air was crisp and clean, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe freely. My phone buzzed with a text from Maya. Dinner tomorrow? I promise not to take any pictures. I smiled and typed back. Sounds perfect. As I drove home through the familiar streets of Millbrook, past the harbor where lobster boats bobbed in the evening light, past the church where I'd married Vivian 5 years ago, past all the places where we'd built our life together, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. The house was quiet when I got home, but it was a good quiet, a peaceful quiet. I made myself dinner, opened a beer, and sat on my front porch watching the sun set over the town that had become my ally in the fight for my own dignity. Tomorrow, Vivian would start packing the rest of her things. Arthur would continue dealing with the consequences of his choices. The town would move on to new gossip. And I would start building a new life, one based on honesty and respect and the knowledge that I was worth more than I'd been settling for. It had taken me 33 years to learn how to fight back, but it had been worth the wait.